The fear of failure, understanding and overcoming atychiphobia. Hello there, and welcome to today's exploration of one of humanity's most common yet debilitating fears. If you're new here, I'd love to have you join our community by hitting that subscribe button. Together, we're diving deep into the psychology behind our fears and discovering practical ways to overcome them. Today, we're tackling something that affects nearly all of us at some point: the fear of failure, or atychiphobia, the universal fear. Picture this. Jennifer, a talented software engineer from Seattle, has spent months developing a revolutionary app. Yet, the night before her presentation to potential investors, she finds herself paralyzed. Her heart races, her palms sweat, and she seriously considers canceling the meeting altogether. Despite her extensive preparation and expertise, the thought of failing publicly is overwhelming. This isn't just ordinary nervousness, it's atychiphobia in action. And Jennifer is far from alone. From the student who procrastinates on assignments to the entrepreneur who never launches their business, the fear of failure shapes countless lives across America and beyond. According to recent research, over 70% of adults report that fear of failure has prevented them from pursuing goals or opportunities at some point in their lives. What makes this fear particularly insidious is how it operates in the shadows. Unlike more obvious phobias like fear of heights or spiders, atychiphobia often disguises itself as being practical or waiting for the right time. It's the silent dream killer that many never even recognize in themselves. Today, we'll pull back the curtain on this common fear, understand its roots, examine its impact, and most importantly, discover proven strategies to overcome it. What exactly is atychiphobia? Atychiphobia comes from the Greek atychis, meaning unfortunate, and phobos, meaning fear. It's the persistent, irrational fear of failure that goes beyond normal concern about making mistakes. While healthy concern about failure can motivate us to prepare and perform well, atychiphobia is characterized by extreme anxiety when facing potential failure scenarios, avoidance of challenges or opportunities where failure is possible, physical symptoms like rapid heartbeat, nausea, or panic attacks, perfectionism that paralyzes rather than motivates, self-sabotage to avoid the uncertainty of trying. Consider Michael, a 42-year-old middle school teacher from Chicago. Despite being encouraged by his principal to apply for a department head position, Michael repeatedly finds excuses not to submit his application. "I'm just not ready yet," he tells colleagues. "Maybe next year." But next year never comes. Deep down, Michael isn't concerned about being unqualified. He's terrified of applying and being rejected. The psychology behind the fear. To understand atychiphobia, we need to recognize that fear of failure isn't simply about the practical consequences of failing. It's about what we believe failure says about us as people. First, evolutionary roots. Dr. Rebecca Thompson, a clinical psychologist from Boston University, explains, from an evolutionary perspective, failure within a social group could once mean exile or death. Our brains developed to be highly sensitive to social rejection because group acceptance was crucial for survival. This ancient wiring still influences us today. When we face potential failure, our brains can trigger the same fight-or-flight response as if we were facing physical danger. 2. Early conditioning. For many, the fear of failure takes root in childhood experiences. Take David's story. Growing up in a Dallas suburb, David had parents who emphasized achievement above all else. Report cards with anything less than A's were met with disappointment and lectures. Athletic competitions weren't about enjoyment, but winning. This environment taught David that his worth was tied to his accomplishments. Now at 35, as a financial analyst, he struggles with debilitating anxiety before any presentation or evaluation. Children who are consistently criticized for mistakes or who receive love and approval only when they succeed often develop atychiphobia, explains Dr. Thompson. They internalize the message that failure defines their value as a person. 3. The perfectionism connection. Perfectionism and fear of failure are deeply intertwined. Perfectionists set unrealistically high standards and then fear they cannot meet them. Sarah, a 29-year-old graphic designer from Portland, describes her experience. "I'll spend hours on a design, then scrap it completely because it isn't perfect. Sometimes I miss deadlines because I can't bear to submit work that isn't flawless. I know it's irrational, but the thought of a client or colleague judging my work as mediocre feels unbearable." Fourth, cultural factors. American culture in particular often glorifies success while stigmatizing failure. From an early age, we're bombarded with messages about winners and losers, with little acknowledgement of the learning and growth that comes from setbacks. Social media amplifies this effect, creating highlight reels of others' successes while hiding their struggles and failures. This creates a distorted perception that everyone else is succeeding effortlessly while we alone are struggling. The hidden costs of fear. The impact of atychophobia extends far beyond occasional anxiety. It can fundamentally limit life experiences and potential in several critical ways. 1. The opportunity cost. Perhaps the greatest cost is what psychologists call the unlived life. All the experiences, growth, and achievements never realized because fear kept someone from trying. James, a 51-year-old accountant from Minneapolis, reflects, "I always wanted to start my own accounting firm, but I was too afraid it might fail. Now, 20 years later, I still work for someone else, and I'll always wonder what might have been." 2. Psychological well-being. Living in constant fear takes a tremendous toll on mental health. Research shows that atychophobia is strongly correlated with chronic anxiety and stress, depression, low self-esteem, imposter syndrome, decreased life satisfaction. 3. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Ironically, the fear of failure often increases the likelihood of actual failure through several mechanisms. Procrastination. Delaying tasks until the last minute. Ensuring suboptimal performance. Self-sabotage. Unconsciously creating obstacles to provide an excuse for failure. Under-preparation. Avoiding full engagement with challenges to maintain the excuse that "I didn't really try." Lisa, a talented singer from Nashville, would deliberately stay out late before auditions, ensuring she'd perform poorly. "If I failed because I was tired, it didn't mean I wasn't good enough," she explains. "It protected me from facing the possibility that my best effort still wasn't enough." Fourth, relationship impact. Fear of failure doesn't just affect personal achievement, it can strain relationships when people become defensive about even minor criticism, hide their authentic selves for fear of judgment, avoid vulnerability and intimacy, project unrealistic expectations onto others. Recognizing atychophobia in yourself. The first step toward overcoming any fear is recognizing its presence. Here are signs that fear of failure might be holding you back. 1. Avoidance patterns. Do you consistently put off challenging tasks? Have you declined opportunities that involve potential public failure? Do you find yourself using phrases like, "I'll do it when," but that time never comes? 2. Emotional responses. Does the thought of failing at something important trigger intense anxiety? Do you experience shame rather than disappointment when you don't succeed? Do you ruminate on past failures long after they've occurred? 3. Behavioral indicators. Do you need excessive preparation before feeling ready? Do you abandon projects when they become difficult? Are you reluctant to try new things unless you're confident you'll excel? 4. Thought patterns. Do you catastrophize potential failures? If I fail at this, my career's over. Do you overgeneralize from specific setbacks? I failed this test, so I'm a failure as a student. Do you personalize failures rather than seeing them as events? This failure means I'm inadequate. Breaking free. Strategies to overcome atychophobia. The good news is that fear of failure, like other phobias, responds well to targeted strategies. Here are effective approaches for overcoming atychophobia. 1. Cognitive restructuring. This technique involves identifying and challenging irrational thoughts about failure. Dr. Marcus Chen, a cognitive behavioral therapist from San Francisco, explains, "We help clients recognize catastrophic thinking patterns and replace them with more balanced perspectives. For example, changing, 'If I fail, it means I'm worthless,' to 'If I fail, it means I'm human and learning.'" Try this exercise. Write down your specific fears about a potential failure. Then ask, what's the worst that could realistically happen? How likely is this worst-case scenario? Could I survive and recover from this outcome? What might I learn from this experience, even if it doesn't go as planned? Second, exposure therapy. Gradual exposure to failure in controlled settings can desensitize your fear response. Ryan, a 34-year-old marketing executive from Denver, shares his experience. "My therapist had me create a failure ladder, a series of increasingly challenging situations where I might fail. I started by deliberately losing at board games with friends who I knew wouldn't judge me. Eventually, I worked up to pitching ideas in meetings, knowing some would be rejected. Each experience showed me that I could survive failure, and my anxiety decreased dramatically." 3. Reframing failure. Changing how you conceptualize failure can transform your relationship with it. Consider adopting these perspective shifts. Failure is feedback, not a final judgment. Failure is a necessary step toward mastery. Failure is proof that you're pushing your boundaries. Failure is a universal human experience that connects rather than isolates you. Carol Dweck's research on mindset is particularly relevant here. A fixed mindset sees failure as evidence of unchangeable limitations, while a growth mindset views it as valuable information for improvement. 4. Creating failure resilience. Building your ability to bounce back from setbacks is crucial for overcoming fear of failure. Jessica, a 38-year-old entrepreneur from Austin, developed a 3-step resilience ritual after any setback. 1. Allow herself 24 hours to feel disappointed. Identify 3 specific lessons from the experience. 3. Take 1 immediate action based on those lessons. This ritual transformed how I view failure, Jessica explains. Instead of seeing it as an endpoint, I now see it as part of my growth process. The structure helps me move from emotion to learning to action. 5. Celebrating effort over outcome. Shifting focus from results to the process itself can reduce failure anxiety. Try keeping an effort journal where you record actions taken rather than just outcomes achieved. This practice helps internalize the value of showing up and trying, regardless of the result. 6. Normalizing failure through community. Surrounding yourself with people who speak openly about their failures can powerfully counteract shame. In San Francisco, failure clubs have emerged where members share recent failures and what they learned. These communities help participants recognize that setbacks are universal rather than personal shortcomings. Real-life transformation. Mark's story. Let me share Mark's story. A 45-year-old former corporate lawyer from New York whose transformation shows what's possible when we confront our fear of failure. Mark had always played it safe. Despite graduating at the top of his law school class, he chose the security of a large firm over his dream of starting an environmental law practice. "I told myself I was being practical," Mark recalls, "but truthfully, I was terrified of failing on my own." For 15 years, Mark excelled professionally while feeling increasingly empty. The turning point came when his daughter, then 8 years old, refused to try out for the school play because she was afraid of being bad at it. Seeing my own fear reflected in my daughter broke something open in me, Mark says. I realized I was modeling a life of safety over passion, and she was learning from my example. Mark began working with a therapist specializing in anxiety. Together, they uncovered how his father's bankruptcy, when Mark was a child, had created a deep association between failure and catastrophe. Through cognitive work, Mark recognized that his adult resources and support system meant failure no longer carried the same devastating consequences it did for his family when he was young. With this new understanding, Mark created a 12-month transition plan. He began taking pro bono environmental cases while still at his firm, building expertise and connections. He set aside emergency savings to reduce financial anxiety. And crucially, he practiced talking openly about his fears with trusted friends. The most powerful moment was when I started telling people, "I'm thinking of starting my own practice, and I'm terrified it might fail," Mark shares. Instead of the judgment I expected, I received stories of others' failures and recoveries. I realized I wasn't alone. 2 years later, Mark runs a successful environmental law practice in Brooklyn. Has everything gone perfectly? Far from it. I've had cases I've lost, months where I barely made payroll, and moments of serious doubt, Mark admits. But here's the difference. Failure is now something that happens, not something I am. Each setback has taught me something valuable that ultimately strengthened my practice. Mark's relationship with his daughter has transformed as well. They now have a family tradition of sharing favorite failures at dinner, things that didn't work out, but taught them something important. Last month, she got the lead in the school play, Mark says with pride. But what made me proudest wasn't the role. It was hearing her tell her friends that it was her third audition after not getting parts twice before. She's learning that persistence through failure is the real victory. Practical exercises to try today. If you're ready to begin addressing your fear of failure, here are 5 exercises you can start immediately. 1. The failure resume. Most resumes showcase successes, but creating a failure resume can be transformative. List significant failures in your life, what you learned from each, and how they ultimately contributed to your growth. This exercise helps recognize the value hidden within setbacks. 2. The What If Challenge. For 1 week, replace "What if I fail" with "What if I succeed?" Each time you notice fear arising, this simple cognitive shift can reveal how often failure-focused thinking influences your choices. 3. Micro-risk daily practice. Commit to taking one small risk each day for a month. These should be actions where failure is possible but not devastating. Perhaps reaching out to a new professional contact, trying a new recipe, or sharing an opinion in a meeting. Track how your comfort with uncertainty grows. 4. Failure visualization. Athletes use visualization to improve performance. You can use it to reduce failure anxiety. Spend 5 minutes visualizing yourself experiencing a specific failure, acknowledging the emotions that arise, and then recovering and moving forward. This mental rehearsal builds psychological resilience. The supportive witness exercise. Identify a low-stakes activity where you might fail, and invite a supportive friend to witness your attempt. This combines exposure therapy with social support, helping dismantle the shame often associated with failing publicly. Special considerations for parents. If you're a parent concerned about your child's fear of failure, consider these approaches. 1. Model healthy failure responses. Children learn more from what we do than what we say. Share age-appropriate stories of your own failures and how you navigated them. 2. Praise effort and strategy, not just results. Research shows that praising children for their effort and approach, "You worked really hard on that," or "I like how you tried different strategies," builds more resilience than outcome-based praise. "You're so smart," or "Good job getting an A." 3. Create safe failure opportunities. Provide chances for your child to experience small, manageable failures with your support. Board games, sports, and creative activities all offer natural opportunities to practice failing and recovering. 4. Use failure positive language. Phrases like, mistakes help your brain grow, and that didn't work yet, communicate that failure is a normal part of learning, not something to be feared or ashamed of. The unexpected gifts of embracing failure. As people overcome atychiphobia, many discover that failure offers unique benefits impossible to gain any other way. 1. Authentic innovation. True innovation requires numerous failures. Thomas Edison famously said of his light bulb development, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." 2. Deepened empathy. Personal experience with failure and recovery builds compassion for others in similar situations. Many of history's most empathetic leaders were shaped by their own significant failures. 3rd, discovered resilience. You never know how resilient you are until resilience is required. Facing and surviving failure reveals inner strengths that success cannot expose. 4. Freedom from perfectionism. Embracing the inevitability of occasional failure liberates you from the exhausting pursuit of perfection. 5. Expanded possibility. When failure loses its power to terrify, your world expands. Options and opportunities previously filtered out as too risky suddenly become available. Conclusion. From fear to freedom. The journey from fearing failure to embracing it isn't about becoming comfortable with disappointment. It's about recognizing that our most meaningful growth, our most significant innovations, and our most authentic connections often emerge from our setbacks rather than our successes. Remember Jennifer, the software engineer we met at the beginning? After working through her fear of failure, she did give that investor presentation. Did it go perfectly? Number 2. Investors declined, but one saw potential in her app and provided initial funding. More importantly, Jennifer discovered that surviving rejection didn't destroy her. It strengthened her resilience and refined her vision. As author J.K. Rowling, whose Harry Potter manuscript was rejected by 12 publishers, noted in her Harvard commencement speech, "It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default." The question isn't whether you'll experience failure. You will. The question is whether that failure will be a terrifying enemy or a challenging teacher. With the strategies we've explored today, you can begin transforming your relationship with failure from one of fear to one of respect and even appreciation. Thank you for joining me today on this exploration of atychiphobia. If you found this helpful, please consider subscribing and sharing with others who might benefit. Remember, understanding our fears is the first step toward freedom from them. Until next time, I encourage you to take one small risk today. Something might fail, but you certainly won't.